Okay, we should have some more attendees join now in the next couple of minutes, but in the meantime, we will kick off. So first, I want to invite everybody, or welcome everybody, should I say, to our first webinar in quite some time. Delighted to have Jason Hammer with us from Vodafone. Jason has been working with Vodafone for a number of years, implementing AI across the organization, and will be giving us an overview of how AI within the service desk environment of Vodafone has brought in, operational efficiencies and cost reductions, shall we say, across the organization as well. Prior to handing over to Jason, I just want to do a little bit of housekeeping. So what you'll find is attendees, your microphones are disabled at any stage throughout the webinar. If you would like to use the Q&A, there's a Q&A text box in Zoom. And if you can put your answers or your questions, should I say, in there, we will answer them towards the end. We'll have once Jason has finished his presentation, we'll kind of have a 5-10 minute Q&A section there where we put any questions to Jason or myself, for example. If we do get any questions that we haven't answered, we will reply via email. And just to note as well that the webinar is being recorded. Recording will become available, maybe not in the members resources section of ITSMF, but will become available over the next few days. We might have it within a private YouTube link, for example. Before I hand over to Jason as well, one thing I want to cover while we have people on the call is we would once again like to put it out there that ITSM Ireland are looking for additional committee members. I'm aware that I need to get back to somebody that I've been talking to. Just my schedule hasn't allowed it at this stage. But ultimately, becoming part of the ITSMF committee will be really beneficial. It's not a big ask either. We're not asking for people to put in a huge amount of time and effort, but you'll be able to look at joining our leadership team, shaping the future of ITSM in the industry within Ireland as well. But it's also really useful for expanding your professional network. Meeting new like-minded people across Ireland as well. And giving you a little bit of behind the scenes look into ITSMF Ireland and ICS. There's also for anybody here on the call, just be aware that ITSMF International also has some events, and you are able to, as an ITSMF member, sign up to. So you can, at any stage, go and have a look at ITSMF International. I think they're running a series of events around AI and ITSM as well, as AI is on everybody's lips at the moment. It's the progress we've seen in the last 12 months, if not 3 years, has been dramatic. So I think everybody has a real interest in AI and ITSM. If you do want to apply for the committee, and I will say one thing as well, we would love to have some non-male committee members. We did in the past, and it would be great to see some women join the committee as well, just to give us a different type of steer as well. Please reach out to me at david.riley@ie.ey.com whenever you have a chance. But without further ado, I am going to stop sharing. And I'm going to hand you over to Jason, who, as I said, is going to bring us through AI in the service desk environment. So I'll hand it over to you now, Jason, and I'll monitor the Q&A section as well during your presentation.
Cool. Let me try and share my screen and go from there. So I'm going to talk today a little bit about a case study of artificial intelligence within our Vodafone Service Desk environment. This is a presentation I first presented earlier in the year for ITSMF UK at a very lovely location of Bletchley Park, the Museum of National Computing, really the home of where I think AI started in Britain. So it was very, very interesting presentation. Lots of different presenters across the day talking about AI throughout service management. So the case study I'll talk about today is specifically about our service desk environment, and this is our internal service desk that supports Vodafone employees across the organization. So let me overcome some challenges. With Zoom. So a little bit about me. My name is Jason Hamer. I lead service management, architecture, and governance at Vodafone. So that's not Vodafone Ireland or Vodafone UK. I work for the wider Vodafone group organization, and part of it called Voice, or Vodafone Intelligence Solutions. We provide services, or specifically service management services as practices, to various other parts of Vodafone. So Vodafone Ireland is one of my customers. So is Vodafone UK3, Vodafone Germany, etc. I run 3 areas of service management. As I said, service management architecture, and that's really looking at our sort of overall sort of strategy and how we deliver service management holistically to the business across the whole of our organization. The second piece is around our standards and compliance. That's our practice frameworks, processes, guidelines, our standards around prioritization, service classes, and our compliance structure that underpins those, making sure that we deliver a quality service. And then finally, I run a data and analytics team that really is looking at our value realization. So proving that we, as service management, actually deliver value back to the business. So looking at things like availability times, customer experience, experience of the services we provide. And really it is our quality measure that we are looking at across the organization to make sure we deliver great service. I've been with Vodafone for 8 years, and as part of starting with Vodafone, one of the things I was involved in from the beginning was our AI chatbot. And that's the story I'm going to tell you a little bit about today. So at the beginning, Vodafone had a new chatbot about 8 years ago, and this chatbot was called Amelia. Now, the problem with Amelia at the time, 8 years ago, when we knew, I think, far less about AI, was that Amelia pretended to be human. And one of the challenges with this is that people were uncomfortable with this pretense of humanity, of interacting with a chatbot and it pretending it was something else. And we had a huge problem with adoption. Initially, we had to run road shows and we had to run workshops to get people to start using Amelia. And we realized that Amelia really wasn't what we wanted to sell the AI chatbot as. So we had to evolve. The identity was really important. And we moved to Toby. And Toby, first of all, identified as an AI. It told people up front it was artificial intelligence. It wasn't pretending to be human. It was ultimately there to drive a better experience for our internal user community. And we found when we had changed the brand, the identity of the chatbot, the road shows and adoption really improved because we weren't selling it as something it wasn't. We were selling it as what it was intended to be. And we put policies and rules in effect around how our artificial intelligence, specifically Toby for ourselves, needed to interact with our community. And that was very different from where it started at the beginning. And this was, I said, Amelia started over 8 years ago. And Toby, I believe, appeared around 6 years ago. So it took us 2 years to realize that mistake, that the identity and how you're selling your artificial intelligence is very important. It isn't just as simple as here's an AI, please go and use it. You need to have a brand, you need to have people to understand it and really what it can do. However, Toby and the chatbot has, really driven a huge amount of efficiency. Toby's taken over a lot of those routine, repetitive tasks. So we've seen, a lot of those simple tasks just be managed and resolved by the artificial intelligence. I'll go into some of the data and the statistics a little bit later of exactly how many it is resolving now. And it's supported a huge amount of shift left activities. We've driven a lot more of the complex second line tasks into the service desk because we freed up the daily churn and grind that is now going through the artificial intelligence. And it's a leaner and more efficient operation. Over 8 years, we have reduced our service desk by around 50%. Now, our service desk has also evolved, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later, but the service desk is not the same it was 8 years ago. It has absolutely changed based on artificial intelligence. So, yes, artificial intelligence can drive efficiency and cost savings, and that is exactly what we have seen by an over 50% reduction in these 8 years, but it has also evolved. The other thing that we've also driven is great customer experience. So in our traditional service desk environment, wait times range from 30 seconds at peak times to a little bit less. But ultimately, if someone had raised an email, it could take tens of minutes to get a response. Now, with the AI, response is instant. Straight away, there is an interaction, you are having communication, and it is there 24/7, and that's really important. It is always on, even if the support team isn't working 24/7. It is there. It will get that ticket created for you and make sure it is in the queue for that team if it can't fix it itself. Now, many of the time, and I'll talk a little bit more about the evolution of how well it's been fixing things, Toby fixes a lot of the issues itself now. The other thing is that it understands skill sets. So over the 8 years of adoption, training of the LLM model, Toby can do a number of things. It can fix things itself. It can move tickets directly to the right team first time, or it can break out to a human agent if it doesn't understand or needs a specific skill set to manage a query. And again, this is something that has to be trained. At the beginning, I would say that the majority of the responses and management of Toby had to be broken out to a human agent. But as it learns over time, more and more gets fixed. But it's a huge change in the customer experience where, as of old, as of 8 years ago, you'd be on a phone or raise a ticket, and it would take a while for someone to get back to you and log it, and then even longer for someone to resolve it. There is always constant information delivered by Toby. You get an instant response, you get an instant ticket number. It will, the majority of the time, resolve it for you, and if it can't resolve it, it gets you to the right place first time. So, Toby, so when we started our journey, adoption was terrible. We had lots of challenges in various countries on picking up the calls or dealing with the chats. People just didn't trust it. Specifically in some markets like Germany, it was a big challenge. We had to also train Toby on different languages because at the beginning it only understood English. Now it understands 7 different languages, including Italian, Spanish, Hindi, Arabic, German, because we've had to train it to support those local markets, because they don't want to chat in English to a chatbot. They want to talk in their local language. But Toby now, over 8 years, going through that adoption route and engaging the different markets, selling the service, explaining how it works, running training sessions, Toby adoption is currently at 79% across the areas where it supports, and it's available in 14 different markets now. Managing the different languages that I explained. So yeah, 79% adoption, which means only 20 of our service desk ticket volumes are coming through other channels like phone and emails. And that is huge across what is 14 markets. This is a lot of internal users. Vodafone as an organization is about 120,000 people. What we've also seen is that Toby fixes around 60% now of those interactions. So out of the 71% of the tickets that come through Toby, it can fix 60% of them. Now, at the beginning, this was about 5. And then as we've evolved over the years, this has got better and better and better. And I'll talk a little bit about how roles in the service desk have changed, how good this has become. As I said, 60% of the interactions are fixed by Toby itself without going to a human agent. 18% of those chats are escalated or handled by agents, and the remainder get routed directly to support teams. So it's a really good experience we are seeing now, but it wasn't always that way. It takes time to learn, for time for the AI to understand how to fix these issues, and this is all around training and roles. So roles change in the service desk, and one of the things that is really important, there's some information here from the Future of Jobs report that was published earlier this year. The expectation is that AI is going to displace 92 million jobs. However, there is an expectation that AI will create 170 million more jobs. So ultimately a net gain. And what we see here is that there's a lot of new skills that are needed. AI and big data, top of the list, number 1. For things like technology literacy and analytical thinking, these are all really important. And this sort of comes on to the new roles that we have seen emerge within our service desk. Yes, we have 50% less agents, but we've got roles now that never existed 8 years ago. So our first of these new roles is what we call digital coaches. These are responsible for monitoring the chats, looking at how far the AI can go, look at surveys and analytics, and understanding where the AI fails. And their role is to enable the AI to go further, do more, get better. So if they realize the AI can't get into a system to reset a password, or it can't pull data from a platform because, again, it doesn't have the permissions, they will look at getting those permissions for the AI so it can continue and deliver its journey. And time again, this is an analytical role where people are managing those user journeys to understand what works, what doesn't, and making sure going forward the AI is trained, loopholes are locked down, but also pathways are opened, and really changing the experience. And again, we call it a digital coach because they're coaching the digital engine, which is the AI. The next role that we have seen emerge, that again never existed 8 years ago, what we call a humanization agent. So they are looking at the user interaction with the artificial intelligence and trying to understand, or getting the AI to understand, user intent recognition of what people are really asking for. Now, as we all know, it's very easy for us as a human, for us to say, if someone picks up the phone to us, my PC's broken, we ask a couple of very easy questions to understand what's going on. But we don't always, as humans, express ourselves in a consistent language. One person might say, my computer's broken. Someone says, my computer's bust. Someone else can say, my computer's trashed. All of those to us as a human will mean a similar thing, but to an AI, you need to understand that intent. And so our humanization agents are looking at those interactions through the chat and are trying to train the AI to become more used to those human intent recognitions. And then finally, the role that I feel is the most important is our data analysis. The data, without the data being good and solid, the AI will not work. This is one of the big challenges that we had at the very beginning, is that our data in our ITSM platform was inconsistent. If you need to route a ticket to a support group to fix an issue, you need to know that that is the support group that will fix those issues and has been set up correctly, and that the tickets are actually being closed and resolved by that support group and not being passed somewhere else to resolve, because the AI will think that is the resolver group, not the one that actually fixed it. So looking at that data, looking at the information within the IT service management platform, and understanding, what hops need to happen to get to the point of resolution, understanding the correct support group, understanding what teams are involved in fixing a solution. All of that data is vastly important, and the better you can analyze that data and the more you can fix it and get it into a good state, the more powerful AI becomes. Unfortunately, if you have bad data, your AI will give you bad responses. But in this changing world of service desk, we need to ask the question, is the service management pathway dead? One of the concerns I've always had is, I started my career in a service desk. That's where I began my service management journey. If we remove vast amounts of resources from the service desk, do we shut down our gateway to other service management careers? That pool of resources is going to reduce significantly. We need to look at other options like apprenticeships or education to help be that new channel. Absolutely. We have got new types of roles that now exist within service management, as I talked about in the last slide. But we also need to say, well, how do we manage our service management career pathway to find other areas besides the service desk for service management professionals? I don't believe the service desk is obsolete. It is a very different thing to what it was years ago. Humans have to support AI. Yes, absolutely, it can deal with a huge amount of interaction, 79% of adoption in Vodafone across 14 markets. But there's still humans that are there. They are dealing with complex tasks. They are governing what the AI is doing. They are analyzing how the AI is functioning. They're focused on driving ongoing continual service improvements. The service desk isn't obsolete. The service desk has evolved. It's become something he was not in Vodafone 8 years ago. New roles, new types of jobs. It isn't picking up the phone or answering emails in the main any longer. It's ultimately supporting new technology. And what do we need to do going forward? Well, we need, as always, to learn and evolve. Unless we utilize these new skills, or we don't, we need to invent new roles. We need to support the changing landscape of technology. Otherwise we're going to end up like the guy on this screen, dead at a computer. This is true for all of service management. It's not just the service desk, but we need to evolve our skill sets and adopt new roles, and create new practices. If I look at Vodafone, we have a practice that doesn't exist now in the ITIL books. We've created something new to support part of our environment. And I think that is what we have to always look at, is how does service management, in this case the service desk here, evolve with new skills and new roles to adopt with AI and future technology. So thank you very much. Thank you for listening to my short discussion on artificial intelligence in Vodafone, and I will pass back to the team to any questions.
Super. Thanks for that, Jason. I think from my point of view, it was really interesting the move between Amelia and Toby, kind of making people aware that they're speaking to a human or speaking to an AI actually increased adoption. And it kind of makes sense, because you're probably thinking, I'm writing a question and Amelia's responding. And I don't know, like, I'll give Toby more leeway because, if the AI agent, he might not know everything, whereas Amelia should, I think
and it's down to the image as well. Amelia was pretending to be, a blonde, human being, when Toby was just honestly being a chatbot, and that was a huge difference.
Tell me this: what does Toby stand for?
It doesn't stand for anything. It is a name that is humanized name, but clearly is an artificial intelligence with the little I. But ultimately, it does not stand for anything. It is just a brand name for the artificial intelligence. And actually, you'll see that same brand name of Toby. It delivers. It's the same AI brand that we deliver to our external customers.
Very interesting. I think that as well, like when I work with clients in the space as well, like, when we talk about AI, it's people aren't really talking about downsizing teams or, head count across an organization. And I think kind of what you were talking about is really key there. They're actually talking about allowing people to focus on higher value activities. And I think you mentioned, was it digital and humanization agents? And I think that's really interesting, because no longer are people just being asked to, sit there, take a phone call, for example. You're actually, there's career progression there as well to move from that role into others. And I think that's really key. And I'm seeing organizations talk about that. And whether they just talk about that publicly and in the background, they actually want to cut heads, that's another thing entirely,
Yeah, absolutely. I think at the beginning of our journey, it was about driving efficiencies and adopting new technology. But as we moved down that 8-year journey, we realized we needed these roles, because we couldn't make the changes and adopt and evolve without them. And we didn't know these needed to exist at the beginning of the journey. These are things that we have come up with along that 8 years. I think if we'd known at the beginning we'd needed these, it would have been a lot simpler, a lot easier. We wouldn't have had so many of the hurdles in the first few years. But we've learned from that. We're happy to share it. You definitely, people need these types of roles going forward. These are going to deliver the success.
Great. If any of our attendees have any questions, please feel free to pop them in the Q&A, and I can facilitate you asking Jason. I think as well, from my point of view, Jason, other than the identity change from Amelia to Toby, what challenges did you guys face during the initial implementation of AI, and how did you address them?
Yeah, so the branding was a big one. Adoption was huge. So we did a lot of work on areas where we found adoption poor. Germany was a prime example. because the German users really liked speaking to humans. And we found, that it was very hard for them to move to the chatbot and AI. So there's a lot of roadshows, a lot of going out, setting up stands in the coffee areas of different buildings and explaining to people what it can do and really how it can help them. So as soon as we sort of change the messaging about here's an AI, it's going to basically deal with your tickets and fix things for you. We changed some of the messaging to say this actually saves time for you. You'll be get instant fixes. You won't wait a day and a half to get your computer repaired or access to a system when it can do it straight away. Changing the messaging around the benefit to the employee, not about how good an AI is. Yeah. And that was a really key bit of messaging and adoption. The second bit was languages. We started off with English, and over 8 years we've added more languages because a lot of countries, they don't want to interact in English. It might be the business language, but they don't want to interact with a service desk type experience in English because it's not always their first language. So getting the language support, those 7 different languages into the system was absolutely vital, specifically in Germany. Yeah, also in Arabic. So we're supporting a lot of our, like in Egypt, Vodafone Egypt. That was huge. So they're probably the two biggest things. One was changing the message around adoption to what it does for you as an employee and the benefit. And the second one was getting the right language for who you are conversing with.
Very good. We have a multi-part question in from Owen. So I'm going to ask it in each different bit. So the first part was, did you outsource any part of the AI implementation or did you keep it all in-house?
No, so the engine of Toby was initially purchased through a partner. It was through a company called IPsoft. I worked in partnership with Vodafone. So the engine, the AI engine, came from them, but the configuration, the training, the management, the language support all came from within Vodafone.
Very good. And Owen, you don't have to apologize for your multi-part question. We're happy to answer all of it as well. So how did the desk staff respond to the change in the service management flow?
So actually, very well. We as a company, we're not a company who lets people go. Even though there was an efficiency of 50% of the service desk, that means we utilize those resources into other roles and other positions. So actually, for many of the service desk, it was an opportunity because they had these 3 new types of roles that were evolving over the years: digital coaches, humanization agents, data analytics. But there was also opportunities to move to other areas that might not have opened up if we hadn't made these changes. So actually, for the majority of our service desk agents, it was a great opportunity.
And you may have answered this already, but the third part of that question was, how did the internal users take it? Did they find it frustrating or welcome the quicker responses?
I think at the beginning, frustrating, honestly. As with anything you implement that's new, it's not going to be perfect. But as you can see, by 79% adoption now across 14 markets, it's a real great success now. It is as part of the DNA of Vodafone internally. It's simple, it's easy to use, it's giving value. But like any transformation or change, it's not always going to be easy at the start, and you need to keep, pushing it, adopting it, evolving it to get it better and better and better. So yeah, painful, but now it's a breeze.
Very good. One from me, obviously, you've kind of spoke about the AI chatbot and Toby, etc. But what other technologies are you looking at, or have you looked at around AI? And kind of we talked about AI because you talk about things like natural language processing, machine
Yeah,
learning, RPA, etc., etc.
we have lots. So our service desk is really the tip of the iceberg within Vodafone on AI. We use it in AI ops, so for correlation on early and actually prediction of monitoring and events. And again, we can predict stuff in advance and stop it happening. We have, again, auto resolution through monitoring and event management through AI ops. We have Copilot as standard across the organization. So we have Copilot engines that will sit on our SharePoints and documentation. So you want to know about the incident process, type it into Copilot, it will pull you back the information. You don't need to now go searching around to find what you need. It is really empowering better knowledge management because you can find stuff quicker. We also have it linked to our major incident process. Yeah, so it is recording the timelines of events and it is creating a draft major incident report. And then we're using it as well to write our problem reports. Again, doesn't mean that these are the things that still need to be checked by humans, absolutely, but it is creating a draft that is saving hours on every major incident or every problem that we're managing because AI is helping. There's huge amounts of usage in Vodafone, so the service desk is one of those experiences.
And one of the things I'm seeing across different solutions as well at the moment is you might think it seems very simple, but there's this whole concept of case summarization with AI. So it's taking all of the inputs throughout the life cycle of an incident or a change or whatever it might be, and succinctly putting it into kind of a small paragraph, which is then
Yeah.
able to be used very easily from an agent. And it might sound simple, but it actually, like, how many times have we had systems where in the resolution field we see dot or dot dot, just so
Yeah.
as
So
people try to get past that.
yeah, so on that, so we ultimately call that prompt training. So we've done a lot
Hmm.
of training internally. We've got a big page in our internal SharePoint that talks about how to use artificial intelligence, and it talks about how to write prompts, how to write sort of the right types of strings of words to get the best out of Copilot or different AIs. And we've done, again, a lot of adoption and training. I think there's 3 internal courses that you can do in Vodafone about how to use AI and get the best out of it.
Very good. Last question from my side, because I'm swamping you with questions. So if anybody else from the attendees list wants to ask a question, please go ahead. But I think what you'll find, one of the things we're finding is obviously, data and privacy is a major concern. So how have you addressed concerns around data privacy and security with your AI systems?
Again, this is one of the good things about the digital coaches is making sure when the AI gets stuck, can or should it have access to those repositories? And sometimes, the reason why the AI won't fix it is it can't, won't allow it. Yeah, it won't. We're not allowing it to go into human records. Yeah, if there's a human record, it just gets locked down. If there are certain security incidents, again, the AI will not be able to interact with them because just won't allow it. So that's really key part of the digital coaches role is to make sure the AI can do what it is allowed and not do what it's not allowed, and they're always checking that. So absolutely, permissions and security is key for the AI, and that is constantly managed and governed. It is a constant job because you need to make sure it is not accessing something it should not.
And I think what we're seeing as well is, like, I work with tools that not only cover IT service management, but risk management as well. And there's a lot of work actually being done around AI responsibility, and, the rules and governance around AI as well. And you'll see things like the new, maybe not relevant in the UK, but we have the new EU AI Act coming in, which is all
Hmm.
around what AI can and can't do, uh, around data privacy, lots of different areas as well. So we'll probably see that coming more to the fore over the course of the next couple of
Yeah.
years as well.
Absolutely, and we as said at the beginning, as we move through implementing what was Amelia and then into Toby, when it evolved into Toby, that is when we wrote internal policies around the use of AI, because it was very important, like you're saying, you've got to have rules and boundaries and controls, and then how it's all governed for the AI. So absolutely important, if you're going down that route, get your rules and your laws set in stone for how AI is going to work in your organization.
Super. Great stuff. Listen, Jason, I really want to thank you on behalf of ITSMF Ireland for your presentation and for your Q&A there. It was really insightful. So thank you so much. And for the attendees, as I said, we really want to have a few more people on the ITSMF committee. So please reach out to myself at david.riley@ie.ey.com if you have an interest. I'd much prefer people to volunteer than us go chasing you down to help out. So with that, I'll leave it there. And Jason, once again, thank you very much.
Not a problem. Thank you. Thank you all for listening. Have
Thanks,
a good day.
guys. Cheers. Have a great day.
Bye.